Hey, welcome everybody. I'm Jake McAfee. I'm the team leader for the McAfee Home Group at Keller Williams. Today I'm joined by Aaron Hindman with Mike Thomas Associates. How you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing good, Jake. Thanks for having me.
Sure. And I nailed the pronunciation of your name that time, so I
Killed
want to
it.
point that out before we get
It's
started.
hard.
So today we're trying something a little different. Like you and I have been messaging. We've actually done a deal together. It went super smooth. Um, just kind of wanted to do something like a free form. You can ask questions. We'll kind of maybe wrap on some subjects, but the idea is that anyone listening kind of has a takeaway that they can implement in their business. And also, you're growing a team as well. So I'm hoping that this could be some good exposure for anyone who kind of fits, what you're looking for. So a little bit of both. But let's start with your background. Like, where'd you grow up?
Sure. So I grew up here. I was raised just outside of Churubusco, but I went to Carroll High School. So I'm a Fort Wayne, Allen County native. I have lots of family members in Noble and Whitley County. So my business kind of spans those three counties primarily. But yeah, Carroll graduate 2008, went to Ball State, got a bachelor's in journalism with a minor in political science. I thought I wanted to do the news. And shortly after I graduated from college, I broke up with my boyfriend and I told my parents, hey, I think I want to go to real estate school. And that was in early 2014, and the rest is history. So,
That's awesome. I had some ridiculously good times at Ball State.
yeah,
Just put that
I
out
got
there.
a decent education, got out of the house and did the thing. Looking back, I probably would have just gotten a real estate license 4 years earlier, but
Yeah,
you know
that's a
how it's
topic
great.
for another day because I don't want to start ranting. So how many years have you been in real estate then?
So I got licensed in May 1st of 14.
Okay,
So just over 8 years.
awesome. And then what was last year's volume?
Last year, I don't have it down to a science, but just under 10 million, like 9,888 or something like that.
Okay. And then year to date this year.
I'm right on track to do 10 again. I think I
Okay.
was 4.7 something at the half, and I haven't looked I don't know exactly today.
Gotcha. Awesome. I just wanted to give a little context for people listening. So,
Yep.
um,
And
okay.
that's just saying that's as a single agent. I was a single agent all of last year with an assistant, and then this year a single agent with an assistant that I've since let go. I just have a transaction coordinator, photographer, runner, those kinds of roles within my ecosystem right now.
Sure. And I do want to reiterate, like we did a deal together and you were super easy to work with. Everything was really organized. And
Appreciate that.
so I want to make sure that's acknowledged. Like you
Yeah,
have a good thing going. I think the idea here is like, how do we maybe get some takeaways to,
sure.
just improve on that. So are
I'm
you looking to
really quick. I'm really big on, as far as deals going smoothly, is creating relationships, especially with other agents in our market. But also, I have a great relationship with my home inspector and the title company and all those people, because it takes so many people to make the deal go smoothly. And I'm not the type that it's like, oh, you're my competition, I'm afraid of you. I would rather be best buds with you, especially in this market we're moving out of, where there's 10 offers on the table. I want you to see my offer and say, I did a deal with her in July and it was super smooth. I would love to work with her again if it makes sense for our clients. Let's pick this one, or whatever that looks like. So, anyway, I just think relationships are a huge, huge factor in this business.
Yeah, completely agree. And I was really glad when you reached out because I've been trying to find someone to do this for a while. So I thought it was pretty cool when you reached out.
You can
Um,
thank Joe, because I probably wouldn't have.
Thanks, Joe. All right, so are you looking to grow a team then? Is that the idea, or are you just looking to improve on your own processes?
So, yes and no. A year ago, when I was pretty pregnant, I thought I need a team. So I've got somebody when I'm, postpartum, at home with the baby, whatever that first quarter and maybe into the first half of this year looked like. So I hired a couple of brand new agents. In the process of that, I also hired a business coach. And once I hired her, she said, can it go back to being just a single agent? You've got too much on your plate being a new mom and all of that kind of stuff. So, yes, at some point, once I get, so my word this year is momentum,
Mhm.
just getting systems in place and getting things to run a little bit more smoothly so that I can better manage my personal time and that kind of stuff. So I think the plan is toward the middle of 2023, maybe bringing a couple of agents on the team. I never look for it to be more than maybe me and 4 or 5 other people.
Gotcha. Just someone to help handle, like, if you've got a listing and you start getting sign calls or like people registering and you don't
Yep,
want to, you don't either have the desire or time to work with all of them, you can help, not let
correct.
that business walk out the door. You can create opportunity for someone on your team while
Yep.
simultaneously helping a client who wants someone who's like super, wants to be there really.
Absolutely. So I'm not a spoon feeder kind of person. I would rather teach somebody to fish, right? So that's the other reason I've recently started dialing, and we can get into this dialing a lot of people that previously would have made me really uncomfortable, because once I get a better oh my gosh, the word's escaping me. Like turning
Subscription?
those people, no, turning those people into clients,
Oh, like
like
conversion, like conversion
conversion
leads?
rate,
Yeah.
then ideally I would have more leads than I could handle. So I can let somebody else be calling on them, and even if just setting the appointment or whatever that looks like, I want to create an opportunity where I have more than I can handle, and I want to hand some of that off. But I also have a high expectation for them to bring something to the table too.
Yeah. Okay. Let's start there then, because I know we had talked about maybe doing some marketing talk and some leads. Let's
Sure.
start with leads. So I guess what I'll ask is like, what are you like? What are right now are your leads coming from?
Sure. I'm just looking at my first half
Sure.
results and then my second half plan here. So my top 3 closed at the half was past client, Sphere, and SOI referral.
Okay.
So that all rings the exact same, right?
Hmm.
Um, so moving into the second half, and that's pretty straightforward. I'm calling on them on a fairly regular basis, especially my A++, and I keep a note on my wall of who's given me referrals that I've converted this year, just so I know. And you may or may not have the same, but I have probably 4 to 6 people that refer me on a regular basis, and then I'll get
Hmm.
onesie twosies from other people.
Hmm.
So I take a group of like 10 or 15 that I think I'm most likely to get referrals from, and I really, really stay on top of them. Um, and then other people are just kind of hit or miss, getting a call or a text maybe every quarter.
Okay. So you
Um,
you stay pretty engaged with all of them, though. It sounds like if people are sending you business.
yep. And then I do 10 pop buys a month. I do 2 monthly emails. Um, and then there's a few things that everybody gets, like everybody gets a pie at, well, everybody gets an invite to get a pie at Thanksgiving. We're looking at doing Santa potentially this year, but those two are so close together. So yeah, and then I do a zoo client event in the spring. So I'm staying in front of them like it's my job.
Yeah, that's awesome, because it is. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's great. So it sounds like, if I'm hearing you correctly, you've got some good systems and processes down for Sphere, for referrals, and you're looking to maybe start widening the net a little bit. Is that
Absolutely.
okay? Um, so did you have anything in mind, or did you like that you were going to start trying, or did you have questions for me about what we're doing? Because I mean, I think it's pretty clear, like a lot of stuff we do is very internet lead based and stuff like that.
Yeah, so both. I recently subscribed to Vulcan 7, which you and I have talked about a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, and so I've had it since the first. Today's the 9th. Today was only my 3rd day, like truly calling them.
Hmm.
Um, so that's kind of been what it was. I also bought Vulcan 7 for the circle prospecting
Hmm.
as prospecting aspect. In the future, I used to count on my listings to produce enough sign calls that I'd get at least one additional deal off of it. And I
Hmm.
haven't had that same track record this year. I don't know if it's my tenacity. I don't know if it's the environment of the internet. People can easily Google 123, Vermont Street or whatever it is, and figure out who to call. They don't have to call my sign to get more information. So I'm looking at doing better circle prospecting. We're sending out 50 just listed, just sold cards right now. And I think following that up with a phone call could really be the 1-2 punch that we're looking for. So that was my other thing, my second kind of new experiment. And then the third one is I'm taking on some new construction open houses, and that's sort of I mean, you know how it goes, a pro bono scenario,
Mhm.
until I get my scripting down and get my comfortability level to a place where I'm getting billed jobs off of it. They're walking in and selling their house with me. Um, and then they become that raving fan, refer me, et cetera, et cetera. So
Yeah.
those are my kind of three new things.
Okay. That's awesome. One thing I want to point out before you go any further is it's something that's standing out to me that I love is like you are getting results and you've been doing really well, but I feel like you're coming with a mindset and an attitude of like a student, like how can I get better? Like where can I improve? And that's really, really cool. So I think that's really important for anyone out there. Like if you're doing something well, that doesn't mean that you can't be better. And it doesn't mean that it's always going to work well. Like you said, you used to get sign calls and now they're probably going to Zillow and then going to the people who pay Zillow, so you're
Yep.
adapting. So that's awesome. Um,
Let me just follow that with two things. So I was an agent for, and I'm going to use round numbers here, about 4 years. And then I was a team leader of a market center for about 3 years.
mhm.
So I wanted to kind of expand my knowledge base when I decided to do the market center leadership deal. And that made me tenfold a better agent just because I learned how to be more learning based and strive for bigger, better all the time. Um, and then the second thing is hiring a professional coach this year was very humbling because, like you said, I'm doing okay, but I felt like, 8, 9 years in, I don't need a coach. I should know what to do. And I was on a consultation with my now coach, and she's like, okay, the guys in the NBA, they still have coaches. And that helped me realize like it's okay to still need to learn or to try new things. And at the end of the day, we're just always improving. So that is, I mean, at the end of the day, I want to learn something new every day.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I want to circle back. So for people who don't know, she mentioned Vulcan 7. That's a dialer. There's lots of different ones. There's Vulcan 7, there's Red X, there's Mojo. Um, you know, if you're gonna do it, I would say just pick one. I mean, Vulcan 7's been good to me, but I've had people where they like in an effort to not do it, I think they keep learning and shopping on which way. It's like just pick one and start dialing. But what it does is it allows you get data that where you can call people, like she mentioned, circle prospecting. So that's where you like pick a neighborhood, or a zip code or whatever, and then it'll give you phone numbers and you can call them. And basically, if you're doing it for a listing, you can say, hey, I've got this listing coming up. Do you know anyone who's looking to buy? Or hey, we just sold this one around the corner from you. Do you or anyone who's been looking to sell? That type of thing. I just wanted to clarify. How's that been going since you've been starting that?
So, like I said, I started it on the first. I have truly only dialed 3 days.
Mhm.
I have set one appointment and I've probably only dialed, I'm going to say 12 to 15 numbers because I haven't gone back. And I don't know if all of them do this, but Vulcan 7 gives you like all the old data. I don't know if it's a year old or whatever. I haven't like weeded through any of that. I'm just doing what's coming in
Gotcha.
on a daily basis, or maybe back, a few days in the end of July or whatever. Of the, I'm going to say 15 dials I've made, I've talked, and I'm like winging this off the top of my head. I do have notes, but probably I've talked to 4 people, set one appointment. And we can go into that if you want to. Um, so I feel like it's going good. And like I have a great relationship with my coach. So we text a lot. So this morning I'm texting her like, no one's picking up, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, just keep dialing. Like if one person answers, that's one time to practice your scripts, even if you don't set the appointment or whatever. So it's just a matter of doing it, but I'm not scared to do it. I know a lot of people are really uncomfortable. I go to bed at night, like picturing my scripts in my head and like basically saying them to myself so that when it comes time, like I feel like I feel prepared when I get on the phone.
Yeah, that's great. And I just did a video today. We're actually not really big on role playing here, and there's nothing wrong. There's like people who are doing great. For me, I just like to see action, like you said, just making the dials. So with circle prospecting, that's just so people know that's very low converting. So if you've already set an appointment, that's pretty awesome. You're calling people that had no intent. They didn't sign up for anything. They didn't do anything. But Stacy on
I
my
may have
team.
misled you. I have
Oh,
not dialed any circle prospecting. I've not done that. I'm only calling expired, withdrawn, canceled,
ah,
FISBO right now.
okay. Okay. So that's still really good. That appointment off that many dials. Yeah, so that is something definitely I do that myself. It's one of my higher converting lead sources. The reason that those are good is because they've already shown the intent of wanting to sell. Versus what I was just talking about with circle prospecting. It's like these are people just living their lives. But right now, Stacy's got a listing in Woodland Lake that she met from circle prospecting. So if anyone's listening and thinking about it, it works. You just have to have proper expectations that you're going to have way more calls with fewer conversations and even fewer appointments with circle prospecting. With expired listings, for sale by owners, and canceled listings, those are definitely more fertile.
Yeah.
The FSBO game, that is tough. You got to be super aggressive. I know Michael's on it. I had him take over FSBOs, and he's converted. I don't know how many offhand, probably like 7 or 8 in the last year, maybe 9. But he's talked to and met 30,
Yeah.
50. I don't even know, way more than that. So as long as you go in with proper expectations of like, because it's the low hanging fruit, and every broker in town is telling their newer agents to call FSBOs. So they're getting a huge amount of calls, and there's experienced agents who know what they're doing, who are doing it too. What's been your experience, or what do you think? I know you just started, but what do you think is going to be one of the obstacles with that?
I think that I want to like keep it positive. I feel like
Permission to speak for you.
People hire an agent with this gigantic expectation. And unfortunately, the way our market is saturated with agents, there's a great likelihood that you're going to hire an agent that's not going to do a great job for you. So I think the biggest obstacle, and I just had another light bulb, a huge obstacle is overcoming however they were either burnt or felt like things didn't work out with their previous agent. And then I think the second thing is a commission battle, honestly, especially with for sale by owners. But secondly, just with there seem to be a lot of agents in the market, and I don't honestly know what you do, so I'm not trying to call anybody out, that will march in and say, hey, I'll do it for 5, or I'll do it for 5.5 or whatever. And they're discounting the buyer's agent commission. And I don't think that's a great habit to get into for anyone, especially just to win a listing, but then it all falls back on scripts. I say it's a commission battle, but if you know the right things to say, you can help your potential client understand why it's worth paying you more. But yeah, I would say those are 2 things that we'll come up against on a daily basis.
Yeah, I would say so. For sale by owners, they're 2 different things. So for sale by owners, like you're pretty much handling the same objection every time, and it's commission. Luckily now we've sold enough, and we've sold enough over ask price that we can just show them like, hey, this person was listed at for sale by owner for X, and we sold it for more.
Sure.
But if you're out there and you're going to start calling, or, my advice would be like where I had success, and then where Michael's had success, is where I think most people come in way too hot, and they're trying to talk and tell and like convince, where Michael and we come in and we ask a ton of questions. Because through the questions, you can figure out where their mind is at. Like, you don't close them over the phone. Really, the questions on the phone are just to figure out like where their headspace is at. Are they
This is my expired script, and it's literally an intro and 10 questions.
Yeah, exactly. So you ask a lot of questions, and then once you figure out where the questions are, you can figure out where their priority is. With for sale by owners, it pretty much boils down to the same thing. It's money that they're going to put in your pocket. So, I think getting out and knowing that like a lot of for sale by owners, like you don't want to make assumptions, because what I found is a lot of them just had such a bad experience last time that they're not actually anti-agent. They're just anti that last one,
Sure.
And so everyone gets lunch. It's kind of like if somebody, like a financial planner, like rips you off or something, you're probably not going to just love financial planners, even though it was just like one guy or gal. So, our thing is we ask a lot of questions, and then we try to come meet. And where most people are lying, like, number one, if you're out there and you're listening, don't tell them you have buyers. Like, everyone, that's like the most common lie So we've actually gone out of our way to say, hey, people are going to call you and they're going to tell you XYZ. So all the people who were misleading for sale by owners, we're already giving them your script before you call them. And Michael's calling at like 8 in the morning. So like we're getting them on the phone and telling them, hey, but the idea being that like we don't want to see people fall for that,
Sure.
like, so if what we're coming with is, you know, knowing the comps, um, sending it to them if they'll let us, trying to come out and see it, and then just seeing what their priorities are, but also being very, very upfront with like, I want the listing. Like I've heard plenty of coaches and they're like, tell them you're going to try to help them on the buy side. And I'm like, no, like I am here to list your house. There's no misleading. There's no like backdoor trying to like, just be Mr. Nice Guy or girl and get in the door and then close them. It's like, I am very upfront and I feel like people like appreciate that honesty. Like we got a lot. I mean, listen, you're not going to be everything to everyone, but I feel like we converted for sale by owners at a higher rate by being just like very direct and to the point. Like we want to sell your house. Here's how we do it. Are you open to at least meeting? And a lot of them
Sure.
say no. And then some of them, eventually they break down and they say yes. Um, okay. So we covered circle prospecting. We covered, I guess, so expired and canceled. Really with those, to me, like I guess you're just getting started. My experience has been, again, it's asking lots of questions and trying to figure out where the deficiency was.
Yeah.
Was it the agent? Like sometimes it is. Like there's times where I'm like, clearly they had a terrible agent. But sometimes it's like they actually, like, I'll see the name, I'm like, this person's like at least good or decent,
Yeah.
but they are really difficult sellers, or or the house had issues. So it's
Yeah.
like you've got a tough house. I mean, I'm making generalizations. So if you're a client of mine and you were expired, I'm not saying you, I meant the other people. But sometimes so, sometimes it's a tough seller with a tough house. And I think maybe the agent either didn't have the skill set or the patience, you know.
Sure.
So you really gotta like like, to me, I come in almost like forensics. Like I'm trying to figure out where did this thing go wrong, and then showcase how our system is built to fix that. And
Yep.
that's not like, slick talk or cleverness. It's like, oh, they didn't market. Well, here's what we do. Oh, they didn't
Sure.
communicate. Well, here's what we do.
That's
You know,
I asked them right on that opening conversation, why do you think your house didn't sell?
hmm
What did your agent do that you loved? What did your agent do that didn't work for you? What do you think
hmm
they should have done? Because they're going to sit there and give me bang, bang, bang their objection about why they don't want to sell or whatever the case may be right there. And then I can, I close with, um, are you familiar with the processes that I use for X, Y, and Z? They're
hmm
going to say no most times. I mean, maybe there's a scenario where they know me through somebody or they see it online or something, but 9 times out of 10, at least they're going to say, no, I'm not familiar. And then that's when I go in and close for the appointment. And then
yeah,
now I try to be very upfront with my information when I get there of how we're going to handle the things that they told me didn't work. It doesn't really matter what I want to do. I want them to understand what I'm going to do differently,
yeah,
essentially.
yeah, definitely. And like you said, getting to the point, or sometimes they'll say, oh, well, they'll blame the agent, but then what I'll realize is it was price. That's a lot of times what'll happen
Sure.
is, and sometimes you get lucky, like when you're the second agent, like they're like they've already kind of softened their position. But something else, I just had this conversation with Michael on my team today, because he's got one that the seller's not really like answering the phone, he's not communicating, it's been sitting on the market for a long time. And I said,
What's a long time?
I think we're at a couple months now.
Okay.
It's land that's like way out. I don't want to say where, just in case the off chance this guy's listening,
Right.
but basically, and I said, to keep calling, because what I think happens too, what I've seen is, if maybe there's a message they're trying to get across, like we're priced too high, whatever, and the seller doesn't want to do it, I think agents get frustrated,
Yeah.
or the seller gets upset, and then there's tension, and then when there's tension, they communicate less, and then I feel like agents sometimes turtle up and don't want to talk. It's hard to call the same person every single week and tell them you think it's overpriced. Like that's not fun. That, like, even I've been doing this for 10 years and I still sometimes get like that sour stomach where I'm like, this is going to suck so bad. They're going to be mad at me. And sure
Yeah.
enough, they are, but I feel like as long as you did your due diligence on the front end, they don't always take it out on me personally. It's more like I'm the one they're talking to and I'm telling them they're going to make less money. Like that's not fun.
Right.
But if I could give a piece of advice to any agents who are, regardless of your tenure in the business, it's like have that tough conversation. I mean, you have to be respectful, you have to be like gentle, but direct. You know what I mean? Like you don't want to be insulting, like your house smells like cat piss and nobody wants to buy it. It's like, hey, we've had 11 showings. All 11 said it smelled bad. And that was a deal breaker for them. And the price is too high. So, so first you got to get the feedback. And then give it to them how you get it. But so I feel like that's a big opportunity in converting those two. So that's cool. And then was there anything else? We covered those. Were you going to get into any type of like buying leads or Zillow leads or none of that?
No. And more power to people if that's, where they want, what they want to do. I did that years ago, 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, and I did a decent amount of business off of them. But in that timeline, I feel like Zillow specifically got super saturated. It was more expensive for less leads and worse leads and all that kind of stuff. So no, I don't have any intention of including that in a budget or a timeline right now.
Okay. Is there any other questions you had about like generating leads or converting them or anything you had in mind?
I don't think so.
Okay. I just nailed it. Is that what
You nailed it. You're on the ball.
Okay. I know one of the other things we were going to talk about was marketing. So did you have anywhere you wanted to take that or like any specific question?
Let's talk about video specifically. I think short and long form. I know you're kind of crushing it with both. I loved this morning. You said that your first reel of you rolling your lawn, was a big hit. I think those things are so funny. What goes a mile is crazy compared to what, doesn't make it out of the building, it feels like. So, yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. I don't know if I have any specific questions. I'm trying to do a little bit of everything as far as short and a little bit longer form goes. I'm struggling, and this is probably something that a lot of agents are struggling with. When I do just like a reel or TikTok style short form video on my phone, it's free except for the amount of time that it costs me to do it. And then it's analysis paralysis until I don't post it. But if I spend money and have someone professionally shoot something, then I'm like, well, this must be good. Someone else did it and I'll post that. So maybe getting out of our own way when it comes to this stuff.
So I guess when it comes to video, I think something that I see a lot is I feel like, and I'm not even saying you're doing this as a general thing, is that people, they make arbitrary judgments about what's good and bad. And it's like, sure, that's not really like when you said you had a bunch of podcasts you were sitting on, I was like, you just need to post that.
Yeah.
And what we were texting about this morning, I think there's a really good example to be taken. So my first reel I ever did, I'd never done a reel. And I posted one of me rolling my lawn, like my lawnmower pulling a big heavy roller to like flatten it out. It was in fast forward, but it had the sound on. So it was like, and which it was not supposed to be. And I didn't put music on. I didn't know you were supposed to do that. And it had 126,000 views.
Isn't that something?
26,000 views. And I got a bunch of followers out of it. And so, what I use that as an example of telling people, like, if you made a hierarchy of like what would do well on a video, me rolling my lawn and fast forward with no music would not be in the top 100. So like my thing is like, be okay. I try to tell people like, be okay with no views. As long as it's something that like today, in our one-on-one, I was talking with Stacy and I forget what she wanted to post. And she's like, well, I don't get as many views when I post that. And I was like, but do you like it? Oh, it's how you started in piano. I was like, you should like do a video about how you got started in piano. And she's like, I don't think I get very many views. And I'm like, well, number one, you don't know that. I'm like, right. Number two, I'm like, who cares if it's something that like you really like piano, you talking about something that you really like is how you connect with people. And so I'm very big on just posting it. Like no one's going to like find you and shoot you. Like the worst thing that's going to happen is like, you just don't get views. Um, and two, like when my wife has a big following on Instagram, and she started with like a broken iPhone. It was like super, super busted up. And it was like a 3 model bag. It was so bad. It was so bad. And all her stories would be like, kids crying and like hanging on her shirt and stuff like that. And at the time I was posting no videos. And then COVID hit, and then I saw what she was doing, and I realized like I have no more excuses. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm not busy because COVID had just hit. And I just watched her grow, 20,000 followers in a year with like a broken phone. Like there's no excuses anymore. And so I guess my thing is just making sure that you're like just always posting, and be cool if like, it doesn't do well. Cause sometimes it might. Like Stacy just did one, I don't know, I keep like pointing, like she's sitting next to me. She did a reel the other day of her singing a song, 12,000 views.
Yeah.
It was like her like lip syncing a song for just sitting in the office. She was on sales shift,
So let me ask this. Are you guys are clearly not only doing like, hey, look at my new listing. Here's me putting a sign in the yard. I don't know, full like 100% real estate related things. So how are you choosing topics for content would be the first question. And then second question is driving traffic outside of the video. So getting the thumbnail correct, hashtags, you name it.
Yeah. So I think an important distinction is like sales and marketing. So I almost look at those videos where like coming soon or, just listed, that type of stuff. That's to me like an extended form of sales, because I'm trying to like pitch a product.
Okay.
And that's kind of a deal that I make with the sellers. Like, hey, when I list this house, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. And I think most people think they're marketing when they're actually selling. To me, true marketing in the modern sense is giving without asking for anything in return. Like, I feel like, a lot of people teach you, like trainers, like make sure you have a call to action in your videos. I mean, maybe if you want to say like subscribe or like, stuff like that, which I guess is still a solicitation, but you're not actually like really selling anything. Like I'm going to invite people to sign up for this new podcast. I'm going to do a podcast out of this interview. I'm going to use it, but I'm not going to talk about hiring me, anything like that. So I think like a couple of things is like, one, we are intentional. Like we go through in our one-on-ones and we create a content schedule for the week. And that's not like me saying like, hey, you post this. It's more like, hey, on Tuesday, what do you want to post? Or like, we'll have like a structure. But like, Thursday is like personal interest for Stacy. So that's where the piano conversation came from. And she had posted a piano video, and I was like, well, why don't you talk about how you got into it? Cause, I'm assuming the conversation is like, every time I'd visit my grandma, I would play the piano or, whatever. Like there's always a story behind it. And
sure.
I feel like I feel like modern marketing is like letting people know who you are in an authentic way, where like new agents will ask me like, should I create a business Instagram page and a personal one? And I'm like, one, it doesn't really matter, but two, I don't think so anymore. The only reason that to me a business page is important is for running ads. So you can actually like run the ads, but I don't separate it anymore because I don't think like life is separate anymore. It used to be
sure.
like in the 60s, like you would go to the office and no one even knew what your family looked like unless you had like a portrait,
Yeah.
And so like those days are gone. Like you're like, the punchline is you're not fooling anyone. Like we can all think of like people who are like faking it out there. Like, I always joke like with agents when I do a closing, I'm like, are you really that excited for your client? Because I bet you didn't even like them, and so I think trying to be as authentic as possible. And I'll admit, like lately, my content has not been great in that regard. We've been very real estate heavy. And that was, I think, a product of two things. Like one, the team grew really fast, and then I'm doing all the editing and I just couldn't keep up. And so all the like park tours, funny stuff, like all that went by the wayside. And I'm working to remedy that. I thought I had a videographer starting on Monday that fell through, but that's like my goal is going to be, I'm going to hire a videographer to help offload that.
Okay.
But I think like creating, like, I think people are way more interested in your journey as a mom. Like, and then they'll see that you sell real estate. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
like, you're a new mom. Like, you are
It's
living.
funny because I wrote down bring back mommy Monday, because when she was a newborn, I was like, I'm going to do a video with her with a little mom, either question or like tip every Monday. And then I tried it and she's like, this big and like crying and like spitting up, and it wasn't working. Now she'd be great. Like, can sit on my hip and yell back and do whatever. So I literally wrote that down because I'm a journalist by education. So like, I love to story tell. So I really struggle with just being like, this is what the interest rate is. This is what the inventory is. Like, that is not naturally me. But if I can create a story around those things and tell that story, and the same thing goes, all that to say, like, at the end of the day, and top of the totem pole is I'm a mom. And if I can relate to other moms who happen to need to buy or sell real estate, we're all doing the same thing here. But I start to struggle because I'm like, well, this isn't real estate related. Should I be wasting my time creating this content? And I need to let some of that go, like you're saying, and just be whoever I am authentically. And the real estate stuff will come through.
Yeah, exactly. I just feel like, and again, this is just one person's opinion, so I don't want to come off as like a know-it-all, but like the reason I want to get back to non-real estate content is because that was when I was like really resonating with people. I got more engagement. Like, I'd be out, at a cookout or something, and people would reference the videos, and like, not only did that obviously feel good, but it was like, okay, like this stuff is really resonating. And it was not real estate related. I've even gotten away from, like, in a lot of videos, I don't even say that I'm a real estate agent. It's like, hey, I'm at this golf course. Hey, I'm at, eating food here. Hey, I'm doing this or that. And I just figure like to me, just getting people in your world, like, people want to work with you. Like, I actually think brokerages are losing their appeal. They might want to say earmuffs out here at Keller Williams, but I just feel like brokerages are, not that they're useless, I'm saying they're losing their appeal a little bit, because agents are realizing, like, my consumers want me, they want you. And so to me, like, again, even if you were real estate related all the time, like, one, that's a very small window to catch someone of when they're interested. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
if they're moving every 3 to 5 to 7 years, that means the other 6, they don't give a crap about what you're posting.
They're snoozing you every 30
Yeah,
minutes.
Exactly. And so if you're just living your life out loud, talking about like whatever you like I like golf, my kids, I like going to parks and doing new things, and I like talking to people, which is why I wanted to do this. So like, if I'm you, I'm leaning way in on that stuff. And talking about, like, your husband has a car detailing business. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So like, I think referencing that, how that's growing, or like what it's like, 2 entrepreneurs being married to each other. That stuff.
Good one.
Yeah. But it doesn't even have to be like a segment or have like a name, like, in my opinion,
Sure.
like something, I know you said Mommy Mondays, but I think something, I see agents make mistakes where they'll put too much pressure on themselves by like naming something, and then they miss like 1 or 2, and then they're like embarrassed, and now they're like, well, now it's just done. And it's like,
I came into this year with, I forget, Mondays were my mom video, and then Tuesday was new construction and something, and I didn't nail it after, like, I don't know, the 3rd week of the year. And I was like, this is too much. So I just did nothing, where it's like, if I can just authentically be me, once again, there's content there. I am blessed to have a very interesting life and interesting job. I could be, and this was going to be my next question to you. Are you just like slamming it in selfie mode and taking stuff with your phone, or are you like lighting? What?
It depends on what I'm doing. I mean, for the most part, and this is where I got to thank like the team, like Michael, everything I used to do was very curated when he joined the team. It was like Monday market update, tour videos, everything was like, had a plan and a script and a camera and editing. And he was like, man, you need to do way more just talking to the camera. And I was like, I don't know. I just feel super weird during that. But I did it, and it really started to resonate with people. And then where we've shifted even more was Stacy joined the team, and she would do like a weekly recap. And she would just talk about her week, like the ups and downs. You obviously have to be careful, because you don't want to, like, if something goes bad, you don't want to be like my seller was the biggest pain in the ass,
Sure.
but you could say like, hey, it was a tough week, like, I don't know, like we had a deal and it fell apart the day before closing, and you don't want to go in. Obviously, you got to like respect everyone's privacy, but you can say that like, hey, it fell apart. Cause I think like the blessing that we have is like people think real estate's cool. I mean, look how many shows there are. And so to me, we try to like lean into that and take people along as much as we can. And it's something I'm still getting better at, like remember, like this morning I was like, hey, I got XYZ on the docket today. And then I don't think I've got back on there on Instagram stories, but like trying to remember, to like take people along for the journey, because I just think people are so tired of being sold to. And I think people try, what I think everyone, but especially agents, they try to mask giving as when they're trying to mask asking as giving, meaning like they'll do a free giveaway, but it's not really free. You got to share and like the page. Like that's not free. And
Sure.
you know what I mean? Or they'll, do things in a way to like show their car and not there's anything wrong with that. Like if you have a nice car and you like it, that's cool. I more mean like people can see the difference. So to me, like the stuff, like and I'm part of this is being based off like watching my wife do it, where she was doing DIY, but not like in this, I'm talking like, and this was a woman when she was in the working world was like super buttoned up, like business attire, makeup on point every single day in and day out. And then she's now posting videos in like sweatpants, like hair up,
Can we plug her? What's her Instagram handle?
It's McAfee Home Living.
AFFEE.
MCAFEE.
Just one F.
McAfee
Home Living.
Yeah. And so
is adjacently related.
Yeah. Lucky for me. And so but like that was really eye-opening for me. Like I share that with people all the time where I'm like, on paper that makes no sense. Like again, she'd be sharing the projects that because she did DIY, so she'd be sharing the projects that got screwed up. She would not, I mean, I think she looks great like that, but that's my wife, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
I know that you guys are like harder on yourselves than most people, you know what I mean? And so to me, it was like, I was excited. I'm like, man, I'm so glad that you're this comfortable being in front of the camera, like not looking your best, quote unquote, all the time.
Sure.
But it really resonated with her. And like what I watched was women felt like they could, like, I guess, trust her, because she was very relatable. Yeah. Like very relatable, where like people are like trying to be relatable, but it's like actually just be relatable. You know right. What that's like a subtle difference, but it's, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, I'm the dog realtor. And it's like, are you the dog realtor? Like, what if you just like dogs? You know right. What I mean? Like there's a difference, with trying to like brand yourself as the dog realtor versus like, I'm going to post this dog catching a Frisbee like every day. So I think that's like a subtle difference too, where people like way overthink it. And it's like, just share what you're doing. Like you're a charismatic person. I remember you stood out when I met you at that Real Producers thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're a confident person. You're selling a lot of real estate. Like you probably have a lot of interesting stuff to share as you go on your journey, whether it's good or bad or what you're trying to do and go through. And then you'll start like attracting people and they'll figure out you do real estate,
So I'm going to use a specific scenario just to ask you how you would do it. So I had a scenario today where I had the seller. We closed about a month ago. They transferred possession 2 weeks ago today. The buyer's agent reaches out to me today and says, hey, the home smells of pet urine and there's a flea infestation.
Oh boy.
And I'm like, I've been in the house how many times, none of our feedback said any of that, whatever. So I just went to the sellers and I said, hey, this is a tough conversation to have. Here are our options. And what do you want to do, basically? So if I went on, if I did a little Instagram live or whatever, and I said, man, today was a tough day. I had a seller like get it handed to them when they maybe didn't deserve it. Do you turn that into a teaching moment then? Or do you, and say like, here's what we do in a scenario like that? Or like my people's main question was, is there a timeline where they can come back to us? Like if we say, okay, we'll pay something, just out of generosity to take care of these fleas, then, or whatever the case may be, then in 2 weeks, can they come up with something else? Or like, when does this end? So, I learned a little something from my broker in this process. So if I want to go turn that into a story that I tell, do I use that as a teaching moment, or do I just do not every day is rainbows and unicorns?
I think both. I mean, the only thing that stands out to me is like, I try to be careful. I don't talk about specific examples personally until like way down the road. Because I'm always worried, like, I know some people aren't like a huge fan of me to begin with. And so like, I don't want the other agent to like take it as like a dig,
Sure.
But to me, yeah, I mean, I would say like, if you learn something, like you could be vague enough where you're like, hey, I learned something. We had an example where a seller sold their house. A month later, the buyers came back and said there was a condition. I learned that, after it was closed, it was done. They could have done the walkthrough, that type of thing. I think that's
because I guess I could even be super vague and say, the buyer came back and is trying to get us for non-disclosure. And unfortunately, they don't have any evidence that we had knowledge of this problem, and leave it a little more vague than that. You're right.
Yeah. And you could, and then you could flip it as like, and this is why, if you're a buyer's agent, do your final walkthrough. I've had it happen where they didn't do final walkthrough, like, nah, we're good. And then afterwards they're like, hey, there's a plumbing leak. And I'm like, well, yeah, how do I know that actually happened with me? You know what I mean? And it was me who isn't awesome. And I was like, how do I know that that's, what I mean? It was like 4 days later. I'm like, maybe that just happened that day. Who knows? Like, that's what the whole point of the final walkthrough is for. But that's me personally. That one's a little nuanced, depending on like the situation, who the agent is, like who the buyers and sellers are, they follow the content. I try not to go too specific personally, because I don't want my clients to feel like I'm airing out their business, but and two, I would never want the agent to feel like I'm taking a shot at them. But if there is something that I learned, like, I think that's worth it. And I think like, what if like maybe only like 3 people will actually care about that story? Like, to me, that's 3 people that you resonated with that day.
Sure.
Like, you don't have to hit, like, we're not trying to go up and hit like grand slams and go viral every time. At least me, I'm just trying to like live my life out loud, be intentional about sharing it, and the chips are going to fall where they may. It's like a lot of views, not a lot of views. Like, I think if anybody's followed my content, they know that I'm being like honest and I'm just trying my best. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Okay. Probably last question. I've got my coaching call at 2.
Oh yeah.
Story or, timeline posts, grid, whatever you call it.
When do you do what? Like,
or what's better? Yeah. Either one.
Yeah. I mean, they're both really important. I kind of subscribe to the Gary Vee of just volume, just put it out there. If you're putting out stuff that, as long as your mindset is, this is going to either be informative or interesting to someone, or entertaining, then send it. And if that's 4 a day, if that's 2 a week, I personally try to be a little more intentional about the posts on the feed.
Sure.
And then the stories is kind of like come along on my day.
That's how I do my personal social media, especially, is like, come on along for the ride. And then you'll see a lot. I'll just put, for the memes, because I want it to pop up and always be there like 5 years from now or whatever. And I'm trying to be more intentional. Like, I'm at this home inspection, it's raining cats and dogs, and we're standing outside, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Getting something on my story, just, that's interesting to people, or, great if someone thinks, wow, she showed up to her home inspection in a monsoon or whatever, so I would say volume is great. I love that. And that I have a whole page of messy notes here, but informative or interesting.
Yeah. Like, cause that's for them. Like, I think most people post because they want something in return. And if you do that, like, that's going to resonate no matter how sneaky you think you are. People are smart and they're going to know. And so like, when you're just constantly, that's why I say just post. Like, if your North Star is every time you post, you're hoping it's interesting, informative, or entertaining, like, you may not always hit the mark, but at least like, that's what this is. Like, I'm hoping that someone gets something from this, and maybe they will, and maybe they won't. And maybe 2 people will watch it and not care, but at least the goal was like to resonate with someone, hopefully. And so that's where we always go. And so then you can't post too much. Like, if you're always trying to be something for someone, but I think when you post too much, when you're like, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my house.
Here's my new listing. I had a closing today.
Yeah.
Whenever people post like, so happy for my seller, I'm like, great, you're doing your job. Like that's your literal job.
I always joke, don't forget I love referrals. And I'm always like, we got it. We know you like referrals. We got it. Know. That's always like my running joke. Like, don't beg for referrals. There's nothing wrong with asking, but I think like, as long it's like Gary Vee calls it jab, 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 right hook, meaning like give, ask, give, ask. And then if you're doing that, people are like more likely to resonate with the ask because you've already given them a whole bunch of stuff that they got something out of, and then it's like a reciprocal thing. So.
Okay. We've got just over 4 months left in the year. What's the one thing you want to get done before 11:59 on December 31st?
Oh, no doubt. Hire a videographer. I want one so bad. I had one. I had to let him go right away. It just wasn't a good fit. Thought I had another one and he just bailed on me like yesterday. So that's the goal for sure. No doubt about it. I think I've got some huge plans for that. So
awesome.
Yeah. Well, thanks for doing this. This was really fun. I appreciate the guts that it took to come on here and be this transparent. That's really cool. And I think anybody that's worked with you knows that you're a pro and doing your thing. So hopefully we can do another deal soon.
All right. Thanks, Jake.
All right. See ya.
All right. Yep. Bye-bye.